Howdy y'all! I'm from the South. To throw in a little country twang. In today's video, I wanted to go over my experiences with C-section delivery. I also had a vaginal delivery. Go over it just a little bit, but it's mostly just gonna be about my C-section delivery. When I was pregnant with my third child, I found out that I was gonna have to have another C-section. There were a lot of questions that I had about the process, the recovery, what my body's gonna do after having a third child and another C-section, and I tried to do some research on the internet, Pinterest, just couldn't really find answers that specifically went over my questions. I understand there may be some YouTube videos out there that could probably have answered a lot of my questions, but I didn't research YouTube, so hopefully what I'm saying is not repetitive to what everyone else is saying. I'm just making this video because I want to maybe help other moms that are going through a similar situation that I went through. I am not a doctor. I cannot give any professional advice. All I can do is just tell you my experience and hope that it will help some of you moms out there. Some of my closest friends who are mothers who have gone through maybe a planned or even an emergency C-section who didn't really know what to expect. Apparently, just from me telling them my story, it was able to bring them a little relief. I brought my daughter's tablet with me so I can look over what all I want to say because I don't want to be all over the place, but I have a feeling that I will just because I did go 3 different deliveries. Okay, so I want to start off by saying that I have 3 kids. My oldest is 9. My middle child is 3 and my youngest is 2 months old. My oldest daughter, I got pregnant with her when I was 17. I had a vaginal delivery with her and it was fairly easy. The only thing that was a little frustrating was she was my first daughter, so I was in labor for about 28 hours. Other than that, I have no complaints. She was healthy, I was healthy, everything went over pretty smoothly. And because I was a teenager, bouncing back was not a huge deal. I had my belly button pierced before I got pregnant with her, and right after I had her, I popped that sucker right back in. Summer after having her, I was wearing crop tops, bathing suits. I didn't have super low self-esteem. My body was right back to normal, and I truly believe it's because of my age. You know, as you get older, it's a little bit more difficult to carry baby. Definitely wouldn't encourage teen pregnancy because there's a lot of things that I missed out on. Anyways, healthy delivery with her. Then I got pregnant with my second daughter at 23. And early on in the pregnancy, when they did the ultrasound, they said that my placenta was lying low. And they told me I had what was called a partial placenta previa. From what they've told me is that it means the placenta is partially covering my cervix. And when that happens, the baby goes through the cervix to come out. So obviously if the placenta is covering the cervix, she doesn't really have a way to get out. So they told me then, you know, you may have to have a C-section. I was extremely nervous. I did not want to have a C-section by any means. I've never had a surgery before, and this is a major surgery. I was scared to go under the knife. And then one thing in particular that I was super ashamed to talk about was the scar from the C-section and what my belly may look like afterwards. You're allowed to worry about your figure. You're allowed to worry about your image. Why do you think there's people out there that go and get surgeries or plastic surgeries? When you have placenta previa, especially a partial placenta previa, a lot of times what may happen, and this is just me talking from my experience, but from what I was told by my doctor, is that a lot of times with placenta previa, your placenta is stuck to the wall. So as your belly grows and stretches, it'll kind of migrate away from the cervix. When you have placenta previa, they will usually do ongoing ultrasound, starting out monthly, and then when you get closer to your due date, they tend to do them every 2 weeks and then every week. So yeah, I got to see my baby a lot while she was in the belly. By, I guess, about a month before her actual due date, I was looking good. They said it was clear. I was able to have her vaginally. The placenta was no longer near my cervix, so they were not worried. But then my water breaks. That's a crazy story. I took my daughter to gymnastics, and while we were there, my water broke. So about an hour, 2 hours later, we go to the hospital, they check me, and sure enough, that was my water. I was in labor, I guess, for about 7 hours. They put the monitors on your belly to hear the baby's heart rate. Her heart rate was dropping, and the doctors and the nurses, ran into the room and said that it may just be the monitor. So they put an internal monitor on the tip of her head to, I guess, get a better listen to her heart rate. Well, even with the internal monitor, her heart rate was still dropping, which for any mom is super scary. I eventually was just like, hey, cut me open, get her out, and the doctors were already on top of it. They were like, yeah, it's time to wheel you in there. We gotta get that baby out of there. I do not tolerate pain very well. I already had the epidural where her heart rate is dropping. They were worried that the umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck and that she was being strangled. So it needed to be a quick process. So they really didn't have time to give me a spinal or any other anesthesia. They just wanted to rush me back there and get her out. This is one of the main differences in a planned C-section and an emergency C-section that no one really discussed with me. The only thing that I ever heard was that the recovery from a planned C-section is a lot easier than an emergency C-section. I had the epidural, they wheel me back there, and they start cutting. I didn't feel the knife, I didn't really feel pain, but I felt a ton of pressure, I felt movement. Honestly, to me, I felt like I felt everything except the knife. By the time they had me open and took her out, I knew it. I knew she wasn't in there anymore. I couldn't feel her in there, in my stomach anymore. I couldn't feel the weight of her inside of me anymore. I knew she was out. My husband was on the left side of me. I looked at him and I was like, she's out, she's out. And because she was strangled, I was like, she's not crying, why is she not crying? I started to panic, but really she was only, it took 20 to 30 seconds and then I finally heard her scream and I knew everything was okay. So I think that is one of the huge differences between an emergency and a planned C-section. Is definitely the anesthesia. The recovery process, to me, I don't know, I may be over dramatic. I don't know what everybody's story is, but having an emergency C-section to me was very traumatic. I thought that my daughter may die. I thought that I may die. Yeah, I'm very dramatic. But while I was in the hospital, the doctor said, usually with C-section deliveries, we like to keep them for 3 days, but hey, you're doing so well with the recovery, we're gonna go ahead and send you home by day 2. I didn't wanna go home. I wanted to stay in the hospital, have the nurses take care of me, have my husband take care of me. I was so worried. I didn't wanna get up and move. I cried a lot. Looking at my body in the mirror, I was ashamed. So it was just a very traumatic event for me. But with my first daughter, who I delivered vaginally, I gained, I guess it was around 15 to 20 pounds. And so, you know, by about a week or 2, I was right back to my body. And then with my second child, I gained same, but I think it was only 15 pounds. Then after 2 weeks of having her, I dropped back down to my normal size. And I don't know if other moms experience this. With the C-section, I had what is called a pucker. That's what my doctor called it. It's called a pucker. And it's where the scar is, there's a little bit of skin that hangs over the top of the scar. And I was terrified that it was going to be there forever, but my stomach started getting flatter, and I guess after 2 weeks it started to really flatten up. And then by the time she hit about 2 years old, it was completely gone. You could see the scar, but there was no pucker.